Hey there, this is your girl, Tra Ravenel, founder and visionary behind the Wives Who Win movement and the Husband and Wives Who Win Training Center. I had to come to you in a different way. My internet was acting crazy and I wanted to get this message out to you all. So I decided to do the video and then just to share with you later on. So every Wednesday we are here having a conversation. Every Wednesday for now, things are updating and changing. But every Wednesday for now, we are sharing in our Husband and Wives Who Win Training Center chat. So we have a noonday chat. So even those of you that are on YouTube will look at this video, we have a Husband and Wives Who Win Training Center on Facebook, and every Wednesday at noon we have a chat. Chats can be about different things, but today we're talking about deception and how deception can lead to divorce. And I'm just sharing with you all my story in my own marriage and why I know that deception is wrong and that it's happening in so many homes, even if you're aware or not. What I do know is that the divorce rate is over 50%. I know that a great majority of that percentage is happening within the church, the very place where marriage should be the standard and should be the example. I also know that communication is one of the number one reasons why marriages are falling apart and individuals are choosing to not stay with the marriage, but to walk away, be by infidelity or doing other things. So we want to break that. We want to break that issue on today, and we want to unfold that. We want to unpack that and see what we can do as a people to be able to mitigate deception, lies, lack of communication, so that couples are choosing to stay together rather than choosing to walk away. And part of my responsibility as a master wife coach is to help men and women to master their role as husband and wife while mastering marriage God's way. And we can't talk about marriage without talking about God. You will often hear me say that. You cannot talk about marriage successfully without talking about God, because He is the creator of all things, including marriage. So deception in marriage. There are so many homes that are struggling with this. I know people personally, women in particular, that lie subconsciously to their husbands when it comes to shopping, when it comes to spending, when it comes to a lot of things, when it comes to the children. And I can even think about instances growing up in my own home when my mom chose to keep certain things from my dad because she didn't want to upset him or want him to worry, but when in fact anything that has to do with the household overall, the children, the family, or that will affect him later on, your husband later on, even in my case with my parents, it should have been disclosed. There's not ever a time where you should have to deceive your partner or lie to them subconsciously, even in the face of trying to protect their best interests. And I know that can be a sticky situation depending on the subject matter. But to me, long term, telling the truth, you'll come out better long term telling the truth, even if you feel like in the moment you wanted to protect that person's feelings or their relationship or what have you. And I was sharing this on social media in the group, and I got cut off, so I'm here. So, even in the beginning of my marriage, I felt like certain parts of my life was my life. I felt like I didn't have to disclose certain parts, and in particularly when it came to finances and financial decisions, because I was a single parent for so long, because I was doing things my way for so long. I was making my own decisions. I was making my own mess ups, for so long. That's the part of me that wanted to keep things to myself. And that's one of the reasons why it took a long time for me and my husband to get on the same page financially, because I had already made certain decisions financially, and I simply just didn't want to be judged about them. Subconsciously we judge for each other. Subconsciously we interrogate one another. And part of the reason why is that I didn't want to be judged for making what may have looked like or seemed like or appeared in his eyes as a stupid decision, because that's the need I felt I had at the time. But my husband and I decided actually this year, January 2018, to take another stab at coming together financially and being open and honest with each other as it relates to finances, our background, certain things that we may have done within the 6 years of us being married that we didn't tell the other person about me in particular. And I can tell you that it was one of the best decisions that we've made, and it has been one of the most freeing decisions that we made as well, because everything is on the table and we don't have to worry about not sharing or not disclosing information to one another as if we're not on the same page. And when you do that, you are not on the same page, and it does cause a lot of other areas in the marriage to be affected. It does cause you not to trust that person. It does cause you not to respect that person, and it can affect your love toward that person, which is already, in jeopardy, because love alone in a marriage is not enough. And even if you have love, you have to make a daily decision to apply or activate that love toward that person. And part of the activation of love toward that person is telling that person the truth, even if, again, you feel like it's going to may hurt their feelings or may affect another area, part of their life at that time. Long term, you'll come out better telling the truth rather than lying. So I want to just tell you the definition of lie, and then tell you the definition of deceit. So lying is a false statement made with deliberate intent to deceive. So when you lie, right, you're intentionally trying to deceive that person. Like, you already know. That's like, okay, me, my husband asked me where I am going, and I know I'm going over to a friend's house, but instead I say I'm going to the store. That's a lie. I intentionally lied to him. I knew exactly what I was doing, what I was saying at the time, and I intentionally lied. Whereas a deceit is an act or practice intended to mislead by a false appearance or a statement. So a deceit would be me, if he's asking me if I'm going by a friend's house, and I say yeah, but I didn't tell him it was a male friend. You know what I mean? So even though I was telling the truth, yeah, I am going to a friend's house, but I left out the part that I was a male friend that he never met, and that he may not agree with. So we have to be very careful when we are in our marriages, relationships, or any relationships for that matter, and we decide to tell a lie rather than to tell the truth. Because again, lies later on can turn into more lies, and it could lead your marriage to a road of destruction, which will ultimately lead to divorce. And recently, me and my husband have been sitting down quite often and just talking about different things, and really uncovering more things in areas of our life, and being more comfortable in sharing, even areas of our credit reports, and different things of that nature, which I've often felt comfortable sharing. And I guess part of me sharing that because I felt like he wouldn't look at it anyway. Just to be honest with you, who's gonna look at a 20-page credit report for each 60-page credit report? My husband is not that anal. He's anal, but not that anal or analytical to that degree that he's going to sit down or even have the time to do it. So I was sharing with him and say, oh, hey, honey, look at my information, my credit report. So anyway, but just being very intentional just recently here, because we're having to make some really major decisions. And that's the thing, when you get to a place having to make major decisions, be it buy a house together, buy more cars, or just make a major financial decision overall, moving or whatever your story, these things will have to come up. And these things need to be shared with one another, and hopefully prior to you having to make a decision, so you guys can make sure you're on the same page. So we read countless stories in the Bible where there was lies, there was deception, there were things that happened, and it almost caused lives, right? It costs lives. It costs lives. We can look at David, for example. David and Bathsheba, right? Not Bathsheba. Who's the girl? It was Bathsheba, right? David, right? So he was seeing Bathsheba taking a shower, and he felt like he wanted to be with this woman that was already married, and he knew that she was married. And when her husband came back from war, which he went to retrieve him, came back from fighting Uriah, he tried to cover up his lies and his deceit by having him go sleep with his wife, because she had already gotten pregnant at that time, which he didn't do, so he ended up killing him. So you see how that ended up, right? So had he not slept with her in the beginning, that would have been the right thing to do. But after he had slept with her, what if he had told Uriah, hey, I made a mistake, I slept with your wife, or tell his wife, like, hey, this is a mistake, this should have never happened, you need to tell your husband, then he still would have been alive, right? Not today, of course, but he would have lived longer than he had lived. So one lie causes you to create another lie, and it ultimately can destroy or cause death to a person or an actual situation. So if you didn't get anything else from this video on today, if you are in a place right now and you have been covering up certain things, this could be from, when you go shopping, you don't share. You tell your husband you've gone shopping, you're sneaking bags into the house or putting them in the trunk or hiding them in the closet until He goes to sleep, you're ripping tags off and pretending that you had an outfit or a pair of shoes all along. You're going places and doing things, and you're not sharing with him. And although you may not be doing anything bad or doing anything to, to cause any infidelity or anything in the marriage, but just the point of you not sharing. Sometimes when we deliberately disclose information or choose not to reveal information, that's the same thing as lying and deceitfulness. Even if, like, say you're in an accident and there, nothing happens to your car per se, and it might be a minor fender bender, and your husband may never even find out, or your wife may never even find out, to not tell that information, that's just like the default to lying. You have to be able to share. Although you say, well, it's not going to affect anything, nothing happened, but the fact that, why wouldn't you want to share that? You have the same insurance. That person can come back and want to sue you later on. Just so many things can happen later on that can affect you for a decision you chose not to share, or information you chose not to share with your spouse. So we want to graduate or elevate from that place of operating in deceitfulness and telling lies into making sure that we do tell the truth. Now, there's something else there, even in your background, in your family line, or something in your past that caused you to lie or to be deception. If you have an issue with trust, if you have an issue with respect, there's always going to be that there unless you are delivered from that, unless you can overcome that. So you have to be able to trace back, why am I lying to my husband? Why am I lying to my wife? Why do I feel comfortable telling a lie rather than telling the truth? And how can I be in a better position to tell them the truth and not be judgmental toward them, or them being judgmental toward me? And that's something that I told my husband, when I was sharing with him. I said, listen, I'm going to tell you this, but I want no judgment. So you need to promise me that you're not going to judge me, and you need to promise me that you're not going to interrogate me, because what's done is done. So asking me why I did something, or why I didn't come to you about whatever, that's done, because it's already done. Now, anything going forward, you have the right to question me, but anything that's in the past, you don't have a right to question me. So maybe you and your husband need to make some type of truce, or you and your wife need to make some type of truce and say, okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to have this honest conversation, but you cannot interrogate me or judge me based on past decisions, and we can only be responsible and be accountable going forward. So not only does that put everything out in the open, but again, it makes you accountable one to another. It also elevates your communication with one another, and it elevates your love toward one another, because now you're in a position where you can love and trust and respect that person, and not thinking that person has a hidden agenda, or does not have your best interests at heart, or is not together with you. And whatever mistakes that you made. And one thing my husband has told me is that we're in this together. So regardless of what decisions you've made in the past, what credit decisions you made in the past, what debt decisions you made in the past, we're in this together because we're one. So it doesn't even matter at this point. We're gonna go through this, overcome this, or whatever together. And that's great to know, and that's great to hear, because you have someone on your side that's there to help you, and that's there to help the marriage overall. Not necessarily to help you, but that's there to help the marriage overall, and it demonstrates their love, their respect, their trust, and demonstrates their commitment to the marriage covenant. So that's our time for today, guys and gals. Like I said, every Wednesday noon we are on in our Husband and Wives Who Win Training Center, just having a topic of discussion. If there's anything you want us to discuss, please let us know. You can post it in the group, or you can send me an inbox, or shoot it at info@wiveswhowin.com via email. Also, our Elevate Emotional Wellness Summit is coming up June 24th. So if you are in a position where you need to be elevated from deception and lies and deceit, and your marriage needs to be elevated overall, your life needs to be elevated, I do encourage you to join us for that. It's 7 to 10 days of greatness. We have world leaders all across the world, same thing, leaders all across the world that are joining us on this journey of helping you to elevate your emotional wellness. We have some that have dealt with lies and deceit in their marriage and their relationships. We have a few people that are divorced that are going to be with us, that are going to be talking about that. 3 people that I know in particularly, 4 people that I know in particularly that have dealt with divorce, and part of that divorce was because of lies and deceit that occur in their marriage, and they're going to share their story and share now where they are and how they've elevated. So if you need to be a part of that, I do encourage you to be a part of that. I encourage you to click that link that's in this post here so that you can join. It's a free summit. There's no charge to you. It's